The evening air hung thick with the scent of rain and exhaust fumes as Officer Clara Ruiz navigated her patrol car through the congested downtown streets. The radio crackled with static, voices cutting through the white noise of the city that never truly slept. It was Friday night, and the usual symphony of urban chaos played its familiar tune. Car horns, distant music from bars, the occasional siren wailing in the distance. Clara had been on the force for 8 years now, long enough to know that every call was a roll of the dice. Tonight felt different somehow, though she couldn't put her finger on why. The weight of her duty belt, the familiar creak of her leather holster, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, all of it seemed amplified as she drove through the maze of neon-lit streets. Her radio squawked to life. Unit 47, we have a disturbance near 5th and Alder. Possible 5150. Respond when available. Clara keyed her mic. Unit 47, copy. En route to 5th and Alder. She flicked on her emergency lights and wove through traffic, her mind already shifting into professional mode. A 5150 psychiatric emergency. These calls were always unpredictable, requiring a delicate balance of authority and compassion. She'd handled dozens of them over the years, each one a small window into the countless ways life could break a person. The intersection of 5th and Alder was a familiar spot in her patrol area. During the day, it bustled with office workers grabbing coffee and lunch. At night, it transformed into something else entirely. A gathering place for the forgotten, the lost, the ones society preferred not to see. As Clara pulled up to the scene, she could see the situation immediately. A small crowd had gathered in a loose circle, their faces illuminated by the harsh glow of streetlights and smartphone screens. In the center of their attention stood a man, his voice raised in animated conversation with a light pole as if it were an old friend. He was tall, but stooped, his frame diminished by whatever weight he carried. His clothes were layered and worn, the kind of practical arrangement that spoke of nights spent outdoors. His hair was long and unkempt, his beard patchy and streaked with gray. But it was his eyes that caught Clara's attention as she approached. They held a clarity that seemed at odds with his circumstances. "Sir," Clara called out, her voice steady and professional. "I'm Officer Ruiz. I need you to come with me." The man's head swiveled toward her, and for a moment their eyes met. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or just the automatic response of someone who dealt with authority before. He mumbled something unintelligible, but there was no aggression in his posture, no fight in his stance. Clara approached slowly, her hands visible, her movements deliberate. The crowd watched with the hungry attention of people witnessing drama that wasn't their own. She could hear the soft sound of phones recording, the whispered commentary of bystanders who saw only the surface of what was unfolding. "What's your name?" she asked gently. He didn't answer, just stood there swaying slightly, as if the ground beneath him wasn't quite solid. Clara had seen this before. The dissociation that came with mental illness, substance abuse, or sometimes just the crushing weight of life lived on the margins. She reached out carefully, placing her hand on his arm. "It's okay. We're just going to talk." The moment her fingers made contact, something changed. The man's eyes went wide, and suddenly he was pulling away, his feet tangling beneath him. Clara tried to steady him, but it was too late. He fell hard onto the pavement, his coat flying open as he hit the ground. The impact was sickeningly loud in the sudden silence. Clara immediately knelt beside him, her training taking over. "Sir, are you hurt? Can you hear me?" As she checked him for injuries, something caught her eye. From his coat pocket, a small metal object had skittered across the sidewalk, coming to rest near a storm drain. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she recognized what it was. A badge, old worn with rusted edges that spoke of years and weather and neglect, but still legible, still unmistakably what it was. A police badge. And on the back, engraved in careful script, "To Dad, you're my hero. See double quote." Clara's hands trembled as she picked up the badge. The weight of it was familiar, the shape known to her fingers from her own years of service. But this one was different. It carried the weight of a story she was only beginning to understand. She looked back at the man who had curled into himself on the pavement, his arms wrapped around his knees as if trying to disappear. The crowd had grown quiet, sensing that something had shifted in the dynamic they'd been watching. "Sir," Clara said, her voice softer now, "were you an officer?" He didn't answer, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he seemed to fold even further into himself. Clara looked at his hands, weathered and scarred, but still bearing the calluses that came from years of wearing a duty belt. The telltale marks of someone who'd spent decades in uniform. "What happened?" she asked, settling onto the pavement beside him. For a long moment, there was only the ambient noise of the city around them. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "Did my time. 25 years. Lost everything after the funeral." Clara felt her heart clench. She'd heard stories like this before. Officers who'd given everything to the job only to find themselves adrift when it was over. The divorce rates, the suicide statistics, the countless ways that serving and protecting could extract its toll on those who wore the badge. "Whose funeral?" she asked gently. He was quiet for so long that Clara thought he might not answer. Then, still not looking at her, he said, "My partner, Jimmy. 22 years we rode together. Heart attack at 48. I was supposed to retire the next month." Clara closed her eyes. She could picture it. The funeral with its sea of blue uniforms, the folded flag, the bagpipes playing Amazing Grace. She'd been to too many of them herself, each one a reminder of the job's ultimate cost. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. "Couldn't handle it alone," he continued. "The job, the stress, the things we'd seen. Started drinking. Wife left. Kids stopped calling. Department gave me early retirement. But by then," he gestured helplessly at his current state. Clara looked at the badge in her palm, then back at the man beside her. She thought about her own father, who'd served 30 years before retiring with honor, his pension intact, his family proud. Not everyone was so lucky. She keyed her radio. "Dispatch, Unit 47, cancel transport. I'm handling this. Copy, Unit 47. You need backup?" "Negative, I'm good." She turned back to the man who was finally looking at her with something approaching hope in his eyes. "What's your name?" "Tom," he said. "Tom Henderson. Badge number 2847. Clara nodded, committing it to memory. "Tom, I'm going to give you this back." She placed the badge in his palm and watched as his fingers closed around it with the reverence of someone handling a sacred relic. "You earned this," she said. 25 years of service. That doesn't just disappear because life got hard. Tom's eyes filled with tears. "I wasn't always like this. I was a good police. I helped people." "I know you were," Clara said. "And you still are." You're just going through something right now." She helped him to his feet, noting the way he unconsciously straightened his posture, the muscle memory of decades in uniform asserting itself. The crowd had begun to disperse, the spectacle over, but Clara could see a few people watching with new understanding. "Are you hungry?" she asked. Tom nodded. "Come on, I know a place." They walked together to a small diner 2 blocks away, Tom moving with the careful steps of someone relearning how to exist in the world. Clara bought him a meal and watched as he ate with the focused intensity of someone who hadn't had a proper dinner in too long. "I had a daughter," Tom said between bites. "She gave me that badge when I made detective. Said I was her hero." "Past tense?" Clara asked. "She's a doctor now, in Seattle. Doesn't return my calls." Clara nodded, understanding. The collateral damage of a life in service often extended far beyond the officer themselves. "Maybe that could change." "Maybe," Tom said, but there was doubt in his voice. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, 2 cops sharing a meal and an understanding that transcended their current circumstances. Clara found herself thinking about her own future, about what happened when the job was over and the badge was turned in for the last time. "Where are you staying?" she asked. "Shelter when there's room. Street when there's not." Clara pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found what she was looking for. "I'm going to call someone. A friend who works with veterans. They help with housing, benefits, all that." Tom looked up sharply. "I'm not charity." "No," Clara agreed. "You're family, blue family, and family takes care of family." She made the call, explaining the situation to her contact at the Veterans Services Center. There was a bed available, she learned, and Tom qualified for several programs that could help him get back on his feet. "What do you say?" Clara asked after hanging up. Tom was quiet for a long moment, his fingers turning the badge over and over in his palm. "I don't know if I can do this. Get clean, start over. I've been lost for a long time." "One day at a time," Clara said. "That's how we do everything in this job, right? One call, one day, one moment at a time." He nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try." They drove to the center together, Tom sitting quietly in the passenger seat of Clara's patrol car. It felt strange, she realized, to have a brother officer in the back of her car who wasn't under arrest. The weight of his service sat between them like a third passenger. At the center, Clara helped Tom through the intake process, her uniform and badge opening doors that might have otherwise remained closed. The staff was kind but professional, clearly experienced in handling situations like this. "I'll check on you," Clara promised as they said goodbye. "You don't have to," Tom said. "I want to." A week later, Clara found herself back at the center during her off-duty hours. Tom was waiting in the common room, and the transformation was remarkable. He'd shaved, his hair was trimmed, and he wore clean clothes that actually fit. But more than that, there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before, a spark of the man he'd once been. "Officer Ruiz," he said, standing as she approached. There was dignity in his posture now, the automatic respect of one officer for another. "Tom, you look good." "I feel human again," he said. "They've got me in a program, working with a counselor. I'm going to meetings. It's hard, but I'm doing it." Clara smiled. "I'm proud of you." "I called my daughter," Tom said suddenly. "Yesterday. She cried when she heard my voice. We're going to talk again tomorrow." "That's wonderful. She wants to fly down for a visit. Maybe next month if I keep doing well." Clara could hear the hope in his voice, tentative but real. It was the sound of a man remembering who he used to be, who he could be again. "I've been thinking about what you said," Tom continued, "about Blue family. I'd forgotten that. In all the drinking and the darkness, I'd forgotten that I wasn't alone." "You're not," Clara assured him. "You never were." They talked for another hour, sharing stories from their respective careers, the dark humor and camaraderie that bound all officers together. Tom spoke about his partner Jimmy, about the cases they'd worked, about the people they'd helped. Clara could see the police officer he'd been, dedicated, skilled, someone who'd made a difference. As Clara prepared to leave, Tom walked her to the door. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you help me that night? Most cops would have just taken me in." Clara thought about her answer. "Because I saw something in you. Something that reminded me why I do this job. You didn't just protect and serve for 25 years, Tom. You showed me what it means to be human first, officer second." Tom nodded, understanding. "Thank you for seeing the cop instead of the homeless man." "I saw both," Clara said, "and they're both worthy of help." 3 months later, Clara received a call at the station. Tom was working part-time at the Veterans Center now, helping other officers who were struggling with their own demons. He'd moved into a small apartment, was regularly talking to his daughter, and had been sober for 90 days. "I wanted to thank you again," he said over the phone, "for that night, for seeing me." "You did the work, Tom. I just helped you remember who you were. I'm thinking about applying for a civilian position with the department, maybe helping with crisis intervention training. What do you think?" Clara smiled. "I think you'd be perfect for it. You've been on both sides now. You understand." "Yeah," Tom said. "I do." That evening, as Clara finished her shift, she found herself driving past the intersection of 5th and Alder. The streetlights cast the same harsh glow, and there were still people on the margins, still stories waiting to be told. But now, she saw them differently, not as problems to be solved, but as people to be served. She thought about Tom, about the badge he'd carried for 25 years, about the daughter who'd once called him her hero. Sometimes, Clara realized, being a hero meant more than just wearing a badge. Sometimes it meant helping others remember that they were heroes too. The radio crackled with a new call, and Clara responded, heading toward whatever story awaited her next. In her rearview mirror, the intersection faded into the distance, but the lesson remained. Beneath every uniform, behind every badge, was a human being worthy of dignity, respect, and second chances. And sometimes, that was the most important thing to remember of all.